So in this video, I'm going to give you my honest opinions of Azerbaijan. I'm going to talk about some frequently asked questions that people have asked on some of my other videos, and I'm just going to give you a really honest opinion. Usually I try and keep them sort of tips and guides to help you, but this one is my opinion, so you can take it with a pinch of salt if you'd like. But hopefully it will give you an idea of what to expect and what to look out for. So if there's anything that I haven't covered in this video, drop a comment below and I will definitely get back to you as soon as I can. So my first opinion of Azerbaijan, I flew into Baku airport from Moldova, and the airport was really modern. So I was quite surprised, and then it was about 3 in the morning. So I was trying to get a taxi to my hostel, but there was unfortunately some taxi scams. This is one of the biggest negative parts of my whole trip, so carry on watching for all the other good parts of Azerbaijan. This was my first impression. We got into a Bolt taxi and we agreed the price. I was with someone I met on the flight. We were going to the same area. But as soon as we drove down the road, he tried to triple the price or quadruple the price and tried to use a fake taxi app, which I've seen in a lot of countries that I've been to. Usually you find that at the start, but this time we were actually driving away from the airport, and when we disagreed, he actually turned back and dropped us off. So yeah, that was my first impression. It wasn't great, but they've got a 24-hour bus service. So I got the bus straight into the center, and then from there I got a Bolt with no problems at all. So I've been to 56 countries, and for me, this just felt like kind of a blend between like Budapest, Dubai because of the architecture, and also a bit of Turkey. They're quite close to Turkey. They're similar in the language. It's almost the same. And especially with the food as well, it sort of feels very Turkishy. So yeah, I think in comparison to other places, it is very, very different. There's not many places you can say it's really similar to that place, which makes it very unique as a destination, especially because it's so close to Europe. It's right on the border of Asia. There's a bit of discussion around whether it is Europe or is Asia, but it definitely doesn't feel like Europe. So I have made another video of the best places or the must-see places in Azerbaijan. But I think some of my particular highlights, I think, was the Fairmont Flame Towers. You can go and use their spa, which is really, really cool. You don't have to stay there. You can just get a day pass, like I did. I think the mud volcanoes you'll see pop up on Google was one of the first things. They are a little bit underwhelming if you just went to see them. But I did a day tour, which was £7, and you see loads of different places, including the Fire Temple, the Burning Mountain. You get to see some of the oil fields and just a few other places around Baku. That is well worth doing. If you want to see everything very quickly, then definitely do that. And then the Old Town. Old Town was amazing. There's lots of little restaurants and bars that you can go to that are really cheap. So yeah, there's quite a few places, and just walking along the marina as well. So the whole point of this video is that I'm honest, and honestly, I didn't try as much local cuisine as I wanted. I was traveling to 4 different countries on this trip, so I needed not to get ill, so I was a bit more cautious, but I did try a lot of their local kebabs and different types of grilled meat, which, to be fair, I do most places anyway. But the food was good. From what I had, the food was really good. There is a lot more you can explore, and everyone I spoke to said how good the food was in general. But if you're like me, sort of a bit more sort of picky, a bit more cautious maybe, yeah, the meat is fantastic, and I didn't have anything bad whilst I was there. I think what really stood out to me was just how busy it was, but it felt like a nice type of busy. So I live close to London and it's just rammed all the time. There's so many people, it feels a bit overbearing. But In Baku, it felt like there was a real buzz. There was lots of young people sort of out on the weekends, socializing. It felt busy in the restaurants. The traffic is always busy. But overall, it just had a really nice buzz for a big city, which I didn't expect. And it is also a Muslim country, but I would say it's definitely one of the more liberal Muslim countries. People were out, people were sort of happy to drink alcohol and things like that. So, yeah, that really stood out to me, slightly different from maybe some of the stricter Muslim countries. Yeah, I mean, first of all, our tour guide was really, really friendly, a really nice guy. He was from Baku. Uh, Overall, I think I would say sort of, I didn't notice people were unfriendly. I didn't notice people being particularly overly friendly. So I felt fine when I was there. I think as soon as you smile and chat to people, a lot of people seem, sort of friendly enough. But there is sort of maybe a language barrier sometimes, which is probably why people are not overly friendly. I think just how much oil is everywhere. That's what surprised me quite a lot because they've got these oil drills all around the city. So they have got so much natural resources. I think the other concern for people is the government, which on this channel, I'm not going into anything political ever. It is solely supposed to be a travel guide. But I think it's good to be aware there is tensions with Armenia, and some people will want to factor that into their visit, and that's fine. For me, I don't like to give any opinion. I also visited Armenia afterwards, just to get an idea of both places. But yeah, some things just to be aware of. But another thing that really surprised me is just the architecture. It is stunning, it is modern, and they're building so many different skyscrapers all around the city, and loads of them are not even built yet. They're still empty. So they're really like putting a lot of money into Baku, and I think it is going to be a massive up and coming travel destination. I think they're trying to do what Dubai has done with the like with the tourism scene. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. Getting around the city was really easy, just apart from the airport experience. I know a few travelers have had a similar airport experience, so it just seems to be the Bolt taxis at the airport. I would definitely recommend, as I said, getting the bus. It is 24 hours. I think between sort of the evening to early morning, it's every 45 minutes. So you shouldn't have to wait too long. Very reliable. But once I was in the city, I got Bolts everywhere, and it was always the price that was on the Bolt. The taxi drivers were friendly enough. The ones that spoke English were quite chatty. Some of them were just quiet, but I think it's more of a language barrier thing. And I didn't feel unsafe at any time taking public transport. There is also buses, and there is also a metro system that you can take. It is a little bit more difficult to understand, but because it's so cheap to get Bolt taxis, I mean, it's a bit ridiculous because this is a travel, like a budget travel blog, but it was so cheap just to get all around the city. So yeah, I would recommend sort of if you want to sort of take it easy, Bolt is the way to go once you're in the city centre. But from the airport, take the bus. I think the main hidden gem is the day pass that the Fairmont Spa offers. The Fairmont Flame Towers, you'll see them all around the city because they're really massive, impending skyscrapers, and it's sort of the focal point of the city. It's very expensive to stay there, but not a lot of people know you can just get a day pass. And it's not that expensive. You can spend a whole day just relaxing in the spa. You've got views over the city. So yeah, not a lot of people know that, which is why I've made a video of that. I've put it just below if you want to watch it. But yeah, that was probably my favorite hidden gem. The other one, if you want somewhere to get really cheap beer, then go to Road Pub because it's like, I think it's like 90p a pint, which is amazing. I think the only thing I really didn't like, apart from the taxi drivers at the airport, was the traffic because it is really manic and they don't always have the lights to help you cross. So you do kind of have to be quite confident. I would stick with the locals when they cross because they really do speed around the blocks. But that was the main thing I would say I didn't like. I think my favorite thing I did is quite hard to decide because I was staying in the cheapest hostel in the whole of Baku, and it was the roughest. You couldn't use the shower, couldn't use the toilet. It was really bad. I even made a video on it if you want to check that out. So I was staying really rough. So going to the Fairmont Flame Towers for the day and having sort of a luxurious day was really, really nice. But I also enjoyed the day trip that you sort of see loads of different places. It was £7. I think if you book whilst you're there, so if you're there for a few days, book it for the next day. When I checked, it was £4 for the day, which is incredible value. The bus wasn't that big; it was only sort of 12 of us, and you see loads of the city. So those two things were really good. But just walking around the city it's a really interesting place. You've got the modern section where you've got the famous museum, and then you've got the old town full of loads of little restaurants and bars to explore. So overall, yeah, there's loads to do, and I think you'll just really enjoy exploring. I think as a destination, it is incredibly affordable. It was really cheap, cheaper than I thought it would be, and the manet, the currency they use, it works out about 48p to the manet. So it's almost sort of half price. So whenever you think, whatever the price is in London, so if you go to a restaurant, a burger, like a high end place, a burger might be like £20. In Baku, it will be around 20 manet, which is like £9.80 or something like that. So, and just generally, it was really cheap. I think you can go out for dinner quite nicely and expect it to be half the price it would be in like another European destination. And of course, like I said, taxis are so cheap, it's worth just getting bolts all around the city. So my tips if you're visiting for the first time, I would say bring cash because a lot of places only take cash. I struggled to withdraw money whilst I was there. The only one that worked was the National Bank of Azerbaijan for some reason. I was using a Starling card, so you might be better with another travel card like Revolut or Munzo or something like that. But yeah, definitely bring cash. Definitely get the bus whatever time you land, as I said. Avoid the taxi scams. And I think also just don't be afraid to walk everywhere. You can always get a taxi back when you need to at the end of the day. But if you just keep walking, walk to the old town, walk around like the museums and things like that, all around the city, you'll find loads of little hidden gems because it is a massive city, but also it still feels very walkable. And another tip as well is to always get an eSIM card so you've got data, which should just make it so much easier when you need to order a taxi or something like that. There wasn't many language barriers. Most people spoke English, to be fair, but like if you go into small shops and things like that, then they might not as much. The language is Azerbaijani, but it is very similar to Turkish. But if you're just going to like the main restaurants and places like that, you shouldn't have a problem. I think most people spoke English. So I went in October and the weather I would say was perfect. Every day it was sort of between 25 and 27 degrees. The rest of Europe was really, really cold. But Azerbaijan was just a lovely temperature. There was no clouds the whole time I was there. It was a bit windy. The only problem with the Fairmont Spa, because as soon as you get past September, they close the outside pool, which is really annoying because for them it is winter, even though for a British person it was more like summer. But so that's something to be aware of. But it was a really good time of year to go. The flights were cheap and the weather was amazing. But if you go slightly later, it does get very, very cold, like it would be freezing in the winter. So you need to go sort of at the right time. And in the summer, it is scalding hot. So if you go sort of on the edge of the season in spring or autumn, I think you'll have the best experience. Not particularly that I can think of, but it's good to be aware that it is a Muslim country. So you will have to be careful if you engage in activities that are against sort of a Muslim religion. Always the best thing to do with that is to check the gov.org website, and it will give you a list of all the things there. But most of the time, it's just being considerate of people. Don't photograph people. Don't take pictures of government buildings. Same as it is probably in most countries. So the type of person who I would say should visit Baku, I would say more on the intrepid side, more sort of adventurous. It's not yet like Dubai, where sort of anyone can go for their summer holiday. It is getting there, but it is a little bit more difficult to travel around. So if you're looking for an easy destination to relax, it might not be for you. But if you have traveled quite a bit, if you're a bit more of a seasoned traveler, then I think you'll really enjoy Baku. In terms of safety, I never really felt unsafe. Even at the airport with the dodgy taxi driver, I didn't feel unsafe. He just turned around and took us back and made us get out the taxi. But I'm saying that from a point of view as a male traveller. I don't know what it's like as a female traveller. I didn't take my wife on this trip. Not because I wouldn't, just because we did different trips this year. But it may be different with if you're blonde and things like that. Some countries like Turkey, it is a problem, and you'll feel that if you're outside the resort areas. I think Azerbaijan will be a little bit different. I think people seem quite respectful there, so I don't think you'll have a problem, but it's always good to do more research on that. This is probably the hardest question. I don't know if I would visit again. I really enjoyed it, but I have a tendency to always like to visit different places. I feel like I saw as much as I wanted to see. There is loads of other places in Azerbaijan, but I think with a few tensions going on as well, I prefer just to stay around Baku. But Baku's massive and it's sort of the outskirts, there's loads to do. But I would probably visit again if I had a few friends who were really up for going and had never been. I would happily take them. I wouldn't go back on my own. I don't think there's anything else. I think I've covered as much as I wanted to, but there may be some things I've missed. So just drop a comment below and I promise I will get back to you and give you an answer if I can. But there is loads of videos on my channel of Azerbaijan. This is probably the last one now before I move on to my next location, which is Georgia. I had a fantastic time there as well, so I'm going to start posting some of those videos over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, always message me if you'd like any more tips or any improvements for the video. I'm always happy to listen. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe.